Recording in progress. Cool. Congratulations on getting through your first mock code challenge. Just being here and getting through that is something. So congratulations. Um, from like 1 to 5, drop in the chat how you felt about that, whether you passed or not. Cool. 60. Awesome. Yeah. Folks who feel like they didn't get all the stuff done, what what do you feel like was tripping you up the most? I guess anyone who got a less than a 3 on this on this sub rating.
I'm still getting like tripped up in, I guess, the order of operations, for lack of a better term. I'm kind of trying to bump up the task at hand to like previous labs and solutions, and I'm getting honestly like lost in my own variable creation and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of chasing my own tail. I've
Yeah.
got well, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Aside from learning syntax and functions work and all that stuff, the problem solving part of it is an entirely different skill that I don't think is in any curriculum anywhere. So yeah, totally legit. Just trying to figure out where to get that. The image that I have always is if you've ever read James and the Giant Peach, there's a part where the giant peach drops in the ocean, and then there's sharks, but sharks can't get a hold of it because it's too big. It's like, and they describe it as a small dog trying to take a bite out of a beach ball, and that's how I always feel when I come up across that. It's like I don't have anything to grab onto here to even start, and so I totally get that feeling. Cool. Who else? Or even if you did think you got all the stuff, anything that was tricky for you?
I feel like going in, you know what to do, and then it's working fine. And then when there's a time crunch and then you have your first bug, you just like want to freak out, at
Yeah,
least for me.
100%.
Um, but I think like one of the things I had issues with is just um like with a time crunch and stuff, like deciding, like making conscious decisions about where you can like access your variables in scope, like that, like because later I had kind of issues with like clicking the newly added ramen thing, things like that. But I was able to get it working, but like the freak out is real at the end.
For sure. Yeah. That's why I'm against code challenges.
One thing, one thing I had a little bit of issue with was when I was clicking on the images to pop up the image detail,
Mhm.
um, uh, without realize or without knowing why those same images kept getting deleted one
Hmm.
after the other when I clicked it.
I had
Then I
the exact
realized,
same bug.
Huh.
or when I
Exact same.
realized on the event click listener, I did a reset HTML with the same image I variable as
Yes.
the one of the actual list. So both kept getting deleted.
Yep.
And then
Yeah.
I realized that I changed the variable and then it worked.
And that's actually an indicator of a different issue, I think. Like, so I think I don't know if it was you or someone else, but I noticed they replaced the image in the middle, so the images would sometimes be huge. Did you get the huge images sometimes?
I got the huge images
Yeah.
sometimes.
So I think the goal there is to replace the images there, so it keeps all the same CSS and everything, and that's why the huge image was happening. So yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that as we go.
All right.
Cool. Anyone else before we jump in?
I had a bit of trouble grabbing the comment section of the form. And of course, it was one of the last things that I was working on. So, I had the countdown timer in my head,
Yeah.
big red digital clock, like in a TV show.
Yeah, for
But,
sure.
But yeah, I don't know exactly where I was going with this, but all I know is that caused me a little bit of trouble for some reason getting into that field to grab the data or grab the information out. And I think it ended up just being a ID problem or something like that. But
yeah, in my sort of general overall notes I was taking as I was going through, I noticed a bunch of people did, well, two things. One of which is a style thing, using query selector instead of get element by ID. I usually don't use query selector unless there's a a deeper selector I want to use besides just the ID, but that's just a style thing. I use get element by ID just because it reminds me I should be getting an ID most of the time. But the other thing that I saw was some folks, and I don't know if this is related, some folks doing selectors to grab the form input elements themselves instead of grabbing them off the event target on the form. So yeah, but again, rule one, it works. So not a big problem until it causes some other problem. So yeah, we'll take a look at how that goes too. Oh yeah, one other general note I had was it looked like at least a couple people had started on the advanced deliverables and some had gotten them, nailed them. And I think there are some people who started working on the advanced deliverables and they didn't get done with like the persisting or something. And so it was difficult to tell if the regular adding the ramen functionality is working or not. I always recommend once you get your basic deliverables done, or even sometimes like if you're working on a project, when you get any deliverable done, make a new branch for that so you have a stable, like I know this was working at this point, I can show it even if I completely screw up everything else. So yeah, if you finish basic deliverables, especially on a challenge, make a branch, keep that in that branch, or make a new branch to do your advanced stuff on. So they don't interfere with each other. But yeah, that was just one or two people, and it was easy to go back and see, like, yeah, you got it. Yeah, overall, like, great stuff. That was some good stuff. Any other questions before we jump in? Cool. Let's do it. Let's see. Big green button. Here we go. Hide those meeting controls. I'm going to put y'all faces and the chat up in the other window here. Oops. So other monitors, so I can actually see when people are talking. Cool. Great. So I'm just gonna do a walkthrough. I'll probably go again a little bit fast at the beginning because this should be pretty rote by now. If it is not, if there's anything in the beginning part that is not clear or you want a deeper understanding of, please stop me and I will definitely stop and explain even the simplest things. I don't want you to show that page on startup. Cool. So let's look at everyone's grades. Let's look at the repo here. Overall, the notes were just like, oh yeah, you got that part and you didn't do the next part. It's cool. So I've cloned this repo down and opened it up in VS Code here. I haven't started up the JSON server yet. So I discovered I was getting weird troubles with my JSON server because it was like a super old version. So I had to get rid of it and bring it back. Problems. So I'm just going to do JSON server, db JSON, and that should give me a local host there. Great. And I also figured out the problem with my light server. So I'm going to pop that open so we can see what that looks like as we go. Cool. So this is what it looks like from start. So what do we want to do first? So our big deliverables are getting all of the ramen images into the div up top there. So we want to load it up when the page loads and grab all that data and loop over it to put those images up there. I want to add a event listener, a click event listener to each of those images or those divs. And are they just images or divs? I think they're just images. Add a click handler to those so that'll grab the details from that and put it down bottom. And then I want to create a new ramen after submitting that form. This doesn't require a post. This is just working in browser. Doing a post is advanced, and we may or may not get to it depending on how fast this goes. So let's take a look at what we have here. I've got my index.js, which is empty, and I've got this here. Cool. So I'm gonna pop back. So here's my data. Let's make sure all that works. Great. I've got all the data there that I need. And let me pop back there. Cool. So first order of business is just getting that stuff at all. So I'm gonna get my base URL here, and I'm gonna go back to my index.js. That. And the first thing I'm gonna do is just fetch from that API. So this is just a get, so I don't need to add any other options. I'll do my .then, do my little JSON dance. And let's just console log it out to make sure it works. And it auto reloaded for me. I've got an array of 5 things. I bet those are the things I want. Yep, they are. All right. Anyone unclear at all on basic grabbing stuff? So I'm going to, we want to render those things on the page. So I'm going to say render. Oh, this is, we have trouble. I have trouble with ramen and sushi because of plurals. So we'll see how that works out here. Render ramens. Sure. Cool. So that is going to run the render ramen function, which we haven't written yet, and pass the JSON data that we got into that function. Let's write that function. And I'll say that is ramens, R-A-M-E-N-S, right? And so I want to go through each of these ramens. And I want to do a for each. So I'm running a function for each of those. And I'm just going to say render ramen. Even though ramen is a singular in this case. So basically this is just saying, go through all the data for each thing in the data. I want to render each one in order to that div. So let's write that function. So this takes in a ramen object, which looks like this. So we have our ID, name, restaurant, image, rating, and comment. Right now, I think we only care about the image, right? So let's go back to our index and see where we're at. Div ID ramen menu. Great. So we want to throw some images in there. So I'm going to grab the, I'm going to grab it up top. Ramen menu div. I'm going to get that element by ID document. And we've got that. Great. So in here, I'm going to go through each ramen. I'm going to create an image element for that and append it to the div. So for each ramen, I'm going to image element, create element, and this is going to be an image. So the image element has a source tag or source property in it where so we can see what that looks like. So we just want to assign a value to the .source. That is going to be our URL for the image. It's going to be local here, so that's fine. That should work. And here we go. So in that image, ramen. And again, this is a long descriptive name. If this is too clunky for your eyes, you can do something different. Yeah, so I'm going to set the source, and it's going to be ramen image. And now I just need to append that to our ramen menu. Ramen menu div. Cool. And unless I did something wrong, I think that will do what we want. Yeah, look at that. So there's a lot of ramen images. They're sized nicely because of CSS. Yeah, so that's the first deliverable. Bam. I made it look fast and easy. It is not necessarily fast and easy. I know some folks didn't even get this far. So if you have questions up to this point, let's hear them. Or anything that I've done that you would like to explore more.
I do have a quick question. On your second then after the fetch, I don't know if it's just like a habit that I've gotten into from like looking at other ones, but I do like results, arrow function, render ramens, and then callback results. And I feel like it's clunky for no reason. And is that even necessary, or what is the pros and cons
Are
of
you
doing
saying
it?
like goes like this?
Yeah,
That's exactly what I do too.
Yeah,
yeah,
those are equivalent. If this
okay.
makes more sense to you, it's the right way to do it.
I still do it that way for the exact reason that I can see there's an actual arrow saying data is going here.
Yeah,
And
Same.
I think that really helps me
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
me too.
parse it.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And the
The
thing
other
is,
thing
this
I
is
would do,
oh,
Mark, could you answer this? Would you, I would never put, or I've learned to because my brain immediately melts when you put dot then data and then arrow to render ramen parentheses data. I would have to rename that to whatever placeholder is going to like make more sense than data.
you mean like
Like,
ramen.
I call that like ramen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's what I would do in a real program too.
okay. I
Yeah.
was just wondering if you would actually use data because then I can never remember
No, because
what I'm looking
data is one of the worst variable names because
at. Okay, cool.
what is it? You don't know what it is.
Everything. It could be anything.
It could be literally
It
anything.
could
So yeah,
be both.
absolutely right. And yeah, and so these two are equivalent here. The thing to remember is that dot then takes a function as an argument. So this is you're defining this function here. So and all it's saying is take the data as an argument. It's just, same as this is the same function written with a function keyword instead. So basically I'm saying this would be this function. So basically it's saying take some data and just pass that data to another function. So this does look better to you sometimes. For me, putting it in the other way just reads better because it's more English like, I guess. You're saying when you fetch the thing, then you render the thing. So this is a function just like this whole thing is a function. That other function is just kind of like a wrapper for this first function. If it makes more sense, great, do it that way. But also make sure you can understand when you see this part. And the same thing for this function in the for each as well. You can have an arrow function, or you can even write in here. You say like that is totally legitimate there. You can do it like that if you want to. As long as you have a function of whatever kind in there, whether it's one you've defined elsewhere or an arrow function or one using the function keyword, you're good. The one time, and you'll see this more in React, I think, the one time that is kind of necessary to have an arrow function is when you're trying to keep a piece of data in scope or call something with a particular piece of data that you might not have access to otherwise. So an example might be a click handler. You render out a bunch of things that has a click handler, and you need to pass some kind of information for each one. And we're probably going to see this immediately. You would have a hard time using just a function name like this because you need to pass something into the function. That's a little abstract, but we'll actually see that in an example in just a second. Yeah, great. Other questions about this stuff?
I forgot to lower my hand. I was gonna ask about essentially you put dot then render ramens and then you build the function render ramens.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think you answered it. I just forgot to click the button.
Yeah, as long as you're using function keyword like that, it makes that function available to the whole scope. If you were defining it like const render params equals function blah blah blah, then you would need it above that because that's a function expression instead of a function declaration, which is a subtle difference that you'll get eventually.
So this wouldn't work if you reorganize or refactored render ramens function into an arrow function.
Yeah, so if you did like
Const render ramens,
const render ramens equals even that or an arrow function, that would not work. You're gonna get an error here, right? Boom, because it's not there. You'd have to put it above.
Oh, okay. So that the fetch basically would see going up. Okay. All right.
When you use the function keyword, that's a declaration, and that makes it available to everything. When you use equals, it's a expression, which means it returns a value, which means it needs to be declared above it. Subtle difference, but as long as you just do it this way, you're gonna be good. Gail, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you think it's best practice to like in that second then like to just have a function there, like because I think I just wrote everything in like some brackets there, and I like like I was just wondering if you think I should just get in the habit of making functions like for that specifically,
or for this one here, the online thing?
yeah, like instead like of just like doing the arrow and then doing everything in there.
Yeah. I don't know about best practice. You'll probably see it more often than not in the wild. This is a function either way, whether it's a function that's been declared like this or an arrow function or whatever else. As long as it's some kind of function, it'll work. If you're just working by yourself and the arrow function way is easier for you to read and understand, that is the right way to do it. I do it this way because it makes more sense to me, and you're going to see it a lot. It kind of reads more Englishy. But yeah, as long as it works and it makes sense to you, you're all good. Yeah. Generally, when working with other people, you like whatever the team as a whole decides is the right way to do it. That's why you do it, regardless of how you feel about it, even if you have very strong opinions about the ways things should be. But sometimes the hardest part. Cool. Great question, though. Anything else before we move on? All right. Let's take a look at our second thing here. So second deliverable is when you click on an image, you want to see all the info about that ramen displayed inside the ramen detail div, and where it says insert comment here and insert rating here. So we want to change the source of this placeholder image to the image that we clicked on. We want to change the name to the name of the restaurant. We change the name of the. We want to change the name to the name of the ramen. We want to change the restaurant to the name of the restaurant, and the same with the rating and the comment. Cool. So this is actually the thing that I was talking about here. We want to. That is called a closure. Fancy words. When you have data inside a scope, like in a function, you can hang on to that data even after the function is gone, as long as you attach it to something that still exists, like a handler. So you can actually append, you can set the handler after you append it. Either way, it doesn't matter as long as you do both of them. So let's do a click handler. Image element. Add event listener. We're going to listen for a click. And so I could just put the name of a function here and define it later on. That would make it hard to pass the data from our ramen down. We could do it. In fact, let me show you how to do it here. We'll take, we can even make it an empty function there and say add listener, add ramen listener, and then pass the ramen in here. So now we can write this function, and we've put a function here that calls this function with the ramen data. So as long as this element exists with the event, as long as this function is the handler for an event listener on an element that exists, that data is going to stick around. So yeah, for the sake of clarity, I think this might be a better way to do it. I usually do it inline, but there's a bunch of different ways to do things. And this is just to show you in a sort of cleaner way to add ramen, how this works. So this is going to take ramen as an argument. So this function here doesn't take any arguments. All it does is call add ramen listener with the ramen data. So we can even see this now, console log ramen. And when we click on an image, it should give us the data for it if I had done anything right. Yeah, look at that. Cool. So this data sticks around even after our function is done because the element that it's attached to is still there. If we remove that element from the DOM, the function and the data associated with it would go away forever and we'd have to figure out something else. But as long as these are on the page, you've got access to that data. So let's go ahead and do our stuff. So we want to change this image source. So let's get that image. It is a class detail image. I'm going to change the, okay, we're going to change the detail. I'm going to get that ID. And I think I'm just going to get them in line here. So I'm going to do, you know what? I'm going to show you a trick that I like doing sometimes when I have to do document get element by ID a lot. I'm going to call it EEL for element. It takes an ID, and all it does is return get element by ID for the ID. So this little function here does exactly this. The difference is I can now type that instead. Not a big difference, but if you're going to be typing it a whole bunch of times that we are here, it doesn't change anything functionally at all. In fact, it makes it a little bit less efficient because you're calling an extra function, but we care more about programmer efficiency than machine efficiency at first. So what does that mean? That means we can do L detail image in quotes. Let's try that again. Detail image. So we can say that, and we're just going to add or not add the event listener. What we're going to do, we're going to add the source. Source is ramen. Was it image? Image. Cool. So this is just saying call this function down here. It's going to get the document by ID of the thing that we pass it. It's going to put the source of that to the ramen image that we got from our data, and look at that. It works more or less. Cool. And we're going to wind up doing the same thing for the rest of them. Any questions we have on this whole bit here before we add everything else?
I had a question actually. Earlier when you were talking about getting different size images, what did you specifically mean by that? Like the list of the images, or when you click on it?
Yeah, so when we click on it here, there's some CSS. It looks like it has the height of that image set. So
okay, yeah, because mine are different images.
Yeah.
But like if you click on the bigger one, the second one, you see that's like it's that's what I'm into as far as like my images are different.
So I think what happened was yours was that you actually replaced the image with a new image element and set the source.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did.
This image has a class on it, and that CSS is what's setting the size. So if you don't add that class to your new image, or the alt or whatever, it's going to be a different thing. So it's easiest and fastest just to.
Yeah. It's just something it was that I didn't get a chance to quickly glance at the pass or failed. Is that considered a fail if I did that?
Nope. It didn't say keep it the same size.
Yeah, I did it. Okay. All right, just making sure. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to keep typing the other ones. Feel free to ask questions and talk while we're doing that.
I have a question. Like I saw that you on the actual coding challenge, so you're not gonna like, because you added the ID, like I wasn't sure if like we were allowed to add anything because you're trying to test our knowledge on like how to call something a certain way. So like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
like I'm doing right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? There are no specific rules for that. I think it's your judgment. If you know how to do a query selector, I don't need to see it. It's pretty simple. If I was taking the code challenge, which I am right now, I would do what I'm doing now. I would put the ID because I am like morally opposed to doing selectors by class unless necessary. If that was a problem and like someone graded it wrong because I changed that, that would be a discussion, I think. Yeah, but as long as you're not like just gunning it to make it do something different, or if the if the assignment is grab this image from your data source and put it on the page, like if you just hard coded the image in the page, that would be a problem. But something like this, I think, is totally acceptable.
On that note,
yeah.
On that note, there is in the instructions for this one, it says feel free to add any additional classes or IDs to any elements.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Okay.
I have a quick question too.
Yeah.
Just because it's not the methodology I've used at all. Is you did ramen image element dot add event listener, and then you took the second argument for the event listener and made that its own function that you then defined. Like this, though, a way that I know about this at all. Mine definitely does not live on one line, so I was just wondering if.
Like, so if you wanted to, you can see like we can easily replace this here with this whole function. We can just move it up here,
which is what I think I've been doing. So I'm just wondering. Right. Okay, that's what I'm missing. I see.
Yeah,
or that's what
both ways. It's exactly the same both ways. This, and I usually do it the way that you're talking about. I think this is the first time I've done this in a walkthrough. I think this might be a little bit cleaner looking, but if again, rule 2, if the other way makes more sense to you, it is the correct way.
No, I can see it now. I was literally confused because I wasn't sure what was happening with your arrow function at all. But I see you're creating a separate function and pointing. Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. And this is going to be text content.
I had a question on the get element by ID versus query selector. I feel like every like walkthrough or different video that I watch, like people have different preferences on how they do it. Is there like a best practice, or like I'm sure that there's probably a module or lesson or something on when to use which one, but it seems like for most of them you can do whatever feels more comfortable for you.
Yeah, and that satisfies rule 1. Like if it works, it works. I tend to do it this way because I feel like using classes for CSS and using IDs for JavaScript, that separation on larger projects just makes things so easier, especially when you have multiple people working on stuff. So if we did a query selector here on the class, and I'm the programmer and you're the designer, and the designer says, oh, you know what, we need to rename these classes because of whatever business reason, you rename the classes and all of a sudden all my JavaScript breaks. So, or we're using a different CSS library or something. So I always want like a unique ID that's not going to change unless I change it, so I can do that. But if you do it the other way, it's not wrong as long as it works. It's just, it feels like a best practice to me to do it this way. I've definitely worked with people who disagree. So do what your team does, basically. And if you're working by yourself, do what makes sense to you.
Would that stand to reason then that like you could use query selector? Because I'm really used to using query selector because I like remembering one thing so far, at least. But like,
the one thing that I remember is get element by ID.
Right. So what I'm wondering is, what if I use query selector until there's something with no ID? Then do I give it an ID and use query selector or
Yeah, whichever way you like. Yeah. And in fact, since we made this little function here, boom, like exact same thing using query selector, totally works. And you don't have to change any of the other things.
Okay.
But yeah, again, it's a matter of preference, whether it's your preference or your team's preference, whatever makes sense to you.
But if you had to go outside of searching for, if you see that there's no unique ID, you would just add an ID rather than try and use something.
Probably, yeah. I mean, in a team situation, I would probably, do a pull request and say, hey, I'm adding an ID to this for these reasons. And then other programmers will look at it and be like, okay, cool, or no, that's not how we do it here. So, yeah, very, very situationally dependent. Let's see, what else do we have? Rating and comment. Okay. Here's the span. Great, that span has an ID. Fantastic. What's the other one? I feel like that might do it. Let's find out. Hey, look at that. So yeah, so again, just to break down, when we're creating one of those images up top, every time we create one in the render ramen function, we are adding an event listener to that image, listening for a click, and it's going to run this add listener function, or that's probably not a great name for it. I would probably say click handle click or click listener or something like that. I can do that right now if I want to. Probably ramen click handler. Perfect. Much better. It does exactly the same thing. Rule 2. So it's calling this handler, and in that it's passing in the data that we are rendering that image out with. And since this is a closure again, this will hang on to the data until that element goes away, which it won't at all. So it'll go away until it'll last till we close the page for now. With that handler, it is taking that data object and doing a get element by ID for each of those elements that need the thing. And we are setting either the image source or the text content to the appropriate thing in the data. And I think that satisfies requirement 2. Yep, totally does. Cool. Questions about any of this stuff that we've done so far?
I completely forgot what your L function did. What does that do?
Right there.
Oh, okay. So you're getting element by ID.
Yeah.
Giving it the, okay.
I'm literally just replacing the words document get element by ID with the letters EL. Just because it's faster to type and easier to read.
Okay.
But if you don't do that, you don't have to do that. In fact, sometimes I know when people have copied my code because that's in there and I ask them what it does and they don't know. That's good times. Cool. Any other questions before we hit the last one? Everyone feeling comfortable with this, or at least have a rough handle on it? Yeah, it does. Inherently flaws. Yes. Yeah. Cool. I'm going to move on to the second one or the third one. Again, any questions about anything at all, please don't hesitate. So last one is creating a new ramen after submitting that form. The new ramen will be added to the lists, and we don't need to do a post. Great, good. So let's see what our form looks like. Right now, we've got this form here. So I'm going to grab it actually before we do anything. Stay here. call it a new ramen form. Loop. Cool. So we've got that form to work with. And that form has name, restaurant, image, rating, and new comment. Could just be comment, but I didn't name it. Cool. So we want to add a submit handler on that form that does something with the stuff in it. So let's do that. Let's do it right here. Why not? I like to, it's not a rule, but it's a sort of guideline I follow when I remember. I like to put things that use stuff close to the stuff. So if I'm making the constant for the new ramen form, it's just called new ramen. Is that right? Bad name for a form. So if I'm making a constant for that, unless I have a compelling reason to, I'll probably add the event listener right there. Because that makes it easier to realize as you're talking it through, I could probably just do this instead without making a new variable. I can just grab it and add an event listener to it. There's no reason to put it in a constant. There's no reason not to, but do what you like. I'm going to be listening for a submit event, and I'm going to add a handler, and I'm going to call it a new ramen handler. Yeah, that's an okay name. And then I can just define that wherever I want. And I'll do it right here. Cool. And since it's an event handler, it is going to take an event as an argument. I will often just abbreviate that to E when you get used to the idea of event handlers. So first thing we want to do, since it's going to be a submit, is the ignoring our. Is it down here somewhere? I bet it is. I think this is for some reason the IDE doesn't want to complete that. It doesn't want to complete the prevent default. I don't know why. It's a method on events, which that is. Maybe in TypeScript it does. I don't know. Anyway, so now it should not reload, at least when we hit the form. It won't do anything else. And I hate this UX here. The button looks exactly like the header. Bad work, everyone. Because I want to click this. Cool, but we see it doesn't reload when we click it. Great first step. So
that's what I did. I thought that was like a button that expands, that toggles the form.
Yep, I have strong opinions about everything. Cool. So when we submit that form, we want to take the data from that form and we want to add that thing to the menu div up there, which we have a function that does that. So all we need to do is get that data, turn it into an object that looks familiar, and call that. So I'm actually going to say, I'm going to make a separate one here. Const new ramen as an object. And even before I fill it out, I can just say render ramen. And that won't do anything because there's no data in it. So let's put some data in it. So it needs an image source, a text content. It needs a image source, a name, a restaurant, a rating, and a comment. I wish that these were named more regularly as well, but notes. Cool. So again, here we have name, restaurant, image, rating, and new comment. Name, I know. New restaurant, I have the memory of nobody. Image, rating, and new comment. Is that right? It is. Cool, which means, okay, great. So these are the form names that we're going to get off of the target. So I can say we want image, name, restaurant, rating, and comment. So I'm going to put those in the appropriate places. This is image. This is name. This is restaurant. This is rating. Same thing. And this is going to be the comment. Cool. And so all I need to do for these, since these are the names of the elements on the form, I just need to grab them out of the form. And the form is target, because that is the target of an event is the thing that threw the event. The form itself is the thing that threw the event. So when we get the event target, it's going to give us the form. Since it has these hooked up by name, name equals name equals restaurant, name equals image, we can just say the form dot the thing. So I can just put target in front of all these. And I'm going to have to put this in brackets. And then I just need to get the value of all of them. Copy paste all that. I'm wary of copy pasting because if I made a mistake, I'll make it in 6 places. And you'll see this both ways. JavaScript lets you put a comma after the last thing in an object or an array. JSON does not. I think Python doesn't either. Maybe it does. I like doing it like this because if for some reason I have to move something around, if I need to move that there, or like I'm super picky and I want to put them in alphabetical order, which I'm doing now, I can move them around without worrying about which one is the last one to not have a comma. So again, style thing, rule 2 thing. If you don't do it, great. I have my IDE to set up when I format it to put one there. So I think this might do it. Before we hit the button and see if it actually works, we are grabbing the form element, which is called new ramen. We're adding an event listener on it. Does stringify delete that last comment if it exists? Yes, I believe it does. Yeah, it'll format stuff as proper JSON. Cool. Getting our form, adding a submit listener. The listener is going to run this function, new ramen handler. New ramen handler takes the event. It stops it from reloading the page, posting the page. And then we're creating a new object with all the things that we need to create a new thing. So the comment, image, name, rating, and restaurant, we're getting those out of the form. So the target is the form itself because the target is the thing that threw the event. So event target is the form. Since those are defined by name on the form, we can grab them as properties of that form, except for this one, which I'm sure this was on purpose to make you use bracket notation, but I wouldn't do that in a real application. So we're grabbing the values, putting them in that object. Since we already have something that puts stuff on that list that takes an object that looks like that, and we don't have to worry about adding a click handler because our render function does it for us, we can just send that object to there, and that should work. I'm like 95% sure, maybe less. We'll see. So let's get a nice picture up there. Great. So there's nothing there. Name is stuff. Here. Is Jesse going to be our new item? Maybe. Who knows? Jesse. Oh, it didn't work. Yes, it did. Look at that. Jesse is our new ramen item. Hooray. Good time. So that worked. And now and make sure that all works. If we go back, great, good stuff. If we want to add another one, we can create a whole bunch. There should all be on there, maybe not. Yep, there they are. Probably would want to clear this form after it's done, and we can actually do that really easy. We can do target reset, maybe. If we put stuff in here, yeah, cool. So that clears out the form. Super easy. Great. So that satisfies our 3rd requirement. Doesn't need a post here. That's a bonus thing. So here is code that will pass this if it were an actual code challenge, which it used to be. Any questions up to here?
Oh, I literally forgot what my question was.
There.
I have no idea.
Those of you who did not complete all the requirements, how do you feel about your understanding of the stuff that we've done so far?
I feel like this made a lot of sense. Honestly, a lot of what came down to me not making it through is that I just panicked during the time crunch. I'm not a good test taker.
Yeah,
I like knew that I knew all this, and honestly, I hit like my first like couple bugs, and it kind of just like went downhill because I like kind of freaked out. So
yeah. I'm not sure I should be saying this on a recording, but I'm going to. We're a school that is licensed. If you have ADHD or anxiety or depression or whatever else I have, even if it's not officially diagnosed, if you're only self-diagnosed, you can ask for accommodations, which may include taking extra time on a code challenge or something else. Woo, there goes my water. If you're just you can't use a keyboard. Yeah, so if you have an actual need and you need to get extra time or some other accommodation, I would be the first person to come to you with that. And I don't need to tell anyone else if you ask me. So just out there. If you have real bad test anxiety and you feel like you know the stuff, but 90 minutes is not going to cut it for you, let me know and we'll work something out one way or the other. Yeah, that would definitely be me. It's a mess up here. Cool. What other questions do we have?
I have a question about how you did the form stuff. Why is new comment in brackets and nothing else is? I don't know if maybe I missed that, but mine looks completely different and they're all kind of in the same format. So I guess I'm just confused why this.
I think I missed one keyword. Well, why is what have all in brackets?
Oh yeah, the new comment.
New
why
comment.
is that
Oh
one
yeah,
in
yeah,
brackets and nothing else is?
Oh yeah, and so the square brackets here. Yeah. Again, if this was my application, I would not call it new comment because everything else is just called image name rating restaurant. I would call it comment, which means we could use a dot. I believe it is called new dash comment on purpose here. So you have to use the bracket notation. So let's take a look at what it looks like without. So that seems like something you should be able to do, right? This is going to give us an error, probably when we hit that. Yep. Comment is not defined on line 34. So let's look at line 34. Comment isn't a thing, right? Oh no, it is, because JavaScript thinks that's a minus. So it's trying to subtract comment.value from e.target.new.
I just changed the name of the form.
Yeah, I would just change the name myself. Again, I believe this is wrong intentionally so that you have to use the square brackets. But pretty much anytime you have, anytime you want to get a property of an object that has punctuation in it or spaces or, I think emojis will work. Unicode will work on dots. Yeah, anything that JavaScript might interpret as not what it is, put it in square brackets with quotes around it. It's just a different way to access. I could do the same thing here if I wanted to. I don't want to, but I'm going to. That'll work just the same. And in other languages, you have to do it that way. So
I see. I did mine all using query selector, so I guess I didn't have to encounter this at all. So.
Oh yeah. I think I saw one of yours. Yeah, and that's something like it works row one. Good job. I think and I've definitely been guilty of this in the past, using a query selector to grab each element of the form. It will work here. If for some reason you have a handler that is going to be useful for more than one form, they might not have the exact same IDs or something, and so that'll break. So and this is like a 201 kind of level stuff, making your handlers as broadly applicable as possible, I guess, without being ridiculous about it, is going to be useful in the long term. You doing it the way you did it works, so that passes. But there's always more than there's 100 ways to do anything. So one of the and this is a little bit off the rails, one of the really fun things for me about programming, and this goes back to like just abusing Perl probably. There's in most languages, and even in languages like Python, it's like there's only one right way to do it. That's garbage. There's a billion ways to do anything. Don't let anyone tell you differently, and whatever works for you works. One of the best things and one of the things I enjoy most about programming is, I play games, I develop games, I program, I hack hardware stuff. You can't see them. I'm like working on an Arduino thing right now. I like to kind of push the boundaries and push the edges of what is allowed or what's possible in coding. In relationships, not so much. Don't do that in the real world. With coding and hacking though, please do. And just sort of seeing like, oh, like can I address a string as an array? Can I use this kind of notation to get properties off of this object in a weird way? Can I push what you feel like you should be able to do and see if you can find a way to do it. So if the grabbing stuff by IDs works for you and you're like, oh, I wonder if I can do that, do it. That's great. The exploration part helps you learn different ways of doing a thing. And so that allows you, when you come down to writing your own stuff or working on a project, it allows you to choose from a bunch of different options that may or may not be good for that situation. The danger is learning some fun, obscure way to do something and then using that in production code, and then someone else comes to you and says, what the fuck is this? That's always a bad idea. But yeah, explore and find different ways to do stuff and try stuff out. And this is a note for myself as much as anyone. I am 52 years old and I am set in my ways in a lot of ways, and I will code stuff the exact same way every time, unless I make an effort not to. So yeah, try different things and see which way is best for your situation, and that will change depending on what you're working on. Long answer. Cool. We are up on time now. Any last questions? Cool. I will post this video in the usual places on my YouTube channel and link it in Slack. I will push this code up to a new repo so you can take a look at it, and I'll link it from the YouTube, and I'll link the YouTube from the repo, so you can only need one. Yeah, and if you have any questions at all about anything at all we've done here, don't hesitate to ask. As you can tell, I love talking about stuff at length. So yeah, I'll do what I can to help you out. And yeah, if you felt really good about this, you're going to kill it on the code challenge. If you feel like you need more work, now you know what you need to work on. Saki.
For this and also for the actual challenge, where do we see the score?
Cool, good question. For this one, there is no official score. I have a spreadsheet that I have everyone's stuff in. These are unofficial because this is just practice. For the actual challenge, I'm going to do the same thing. I have the spreadsheet and I'll put everyone's names, and it has like the rubric of this part worked, this part worked, this part worked. If you do all three parts, you pass. So if you do all three parts, I will send you a message on Slack saying, congratulations, you passed. If you don't pass, I'll send you a message on Slack saying, you missed these parts, we'll do a retake. And then everyone who's doing a retake, and it'll probably be 5 or 6 people, will be in we'll make a new Slack channel for them, and you can study with each other there and get directed help. And eventually I'll get around to posting them in Canvas where people who like numbers can see them. Did that answer your question? Awesome. Weird styling. What weird styling?
I think he's talking about the comments.
That was the comment on my on my entry there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the weird styling was the image size thing. I was like, why is that doing that? Oh, because there's no CSS on it.
Oh, that mine was.
Was that the same thing? I don't know.
Maybe I read the wrong line on the thing.
Yeah,
That's
there was
fine.
something about something.
I am curious what the comment means, though. Is there any?
Yeah, me too. I wonder which one was it. Weird
I'm
style.
Jason. I'm actually Jason too, with an SON at the end. I don't know if that's official in any way, but I don't
Weird
want the
styling.
last.
I don't know.
I mean,
yeah, it passed, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. If it works, it works. So.
Yeah, if it works, it works.
All right.
That
was my
Marcus.
question.
Did you have a last question?
Yeah, I do. You held up a thing, and I demand to know what that was.
This is from a little project, a little thing I got called 30 Day. Let's turn off sharing since we're done looking at code. This is a thing called 30 Days Lost in Space.
Okay.
They pretend you're in a spaceship and you have to build little things to
okay.
get unlost.
Oh, that's a what do you call that? The little
board. Yeah, so it's
a little white board.
An Arduino with a breadboard and a bunch of components. And like, here's how you turn on LEDs. Here's how you make switches work. It's nice. It's a good intro. I haven't touched this stuff in a decade or so. So
are you familiar with Arduino versus Evil, AVE?
Nope.
YouTube channel A little A big V little E. It's an engineer in Canada who's hilarious.
Nice.
Mostly on the mechanical side, but his name is Arduino versus Evil, which I found funny. Nice. But yeah, you can tell I failed college by only knowing that that's a breadboard and going no further in electrical engineering than that.
I did not even that far. So.
But you held up a doohickey and I couldn't tell what it was, so I wanted to know.
Fair.
But that was my only question.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Anything else before we sign off? Cool. Thanks for hanging out. This has been really good. I did try a new way of doing this that I usually do, so that felt good. Yeah, again, I'll post it in the regular places. If you have any questions, holler at me. Other than that, the rest of the day is yours to review as you need. Cool.
I have a question for anybody.
Yes.
If somebody did a post on the ramen challenge? If yes, I need help.
I just did it while we were going over the rest of the ramen challenge, and
cool.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help you. Just hop into Discord.
Yeah, we can go on the water cooler, so you can.
Yeah, that'll work. Water cooler work.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, and if you want to post code in the channel there so other folks can see it, great. Totally for it.
All right.
Awesome. I'll catch you all later.
Yep. Thank you.